Ambassador Wells, so nice to have you with us this morning.
Thank you for the invitation.
We looked forward to talking to you for a while because you've been traveling to Central Asia, you've been busy, specifically with Uzbekistan. I want to get to your recent trip to Tashkent and talk about the reforms that are taking place in Uzbekistan. But before that, I have watched your work for many years. You are a professional diplomat whose career has spanned several administrations, both Republican and Democratic. And I've covered Central Asia for as long as you've been working on the region. So between you and I, we've probably heard the same sets of policy themes, support of sovereignty, security, promotion of democratic reforms, economic development. What has changed with the arrival of the Trump administration? What's new in terms of the policy towards Central Asia today?
I think a couple of factors. I mean, first, you're right. For the last, since 1991, we have always strongly spoken out in favor of the sovereignty, the territorial integrity, and the independence of the Central Asian states. But I think that we have two new dimensions to the relationship. And one of them is because I think of President Mirziyoyev, that we're now looking at the possibilities for intra-regional cooperation and how to tap the power of all of the Central Asian states to increase the economic dynamism, the ability for the states of Central Asia to organize around themes of energy, environment, trade, in support of their own economic development, as well as in support of Afghanistan's long-term stability and security. And so President Mirziyoyev's own stance on opening up, on reaching out to neighbors, on settling border disputes and long-standing disputes has been a real critical factor, I think, in changing everyone's assessment of what is possible in Central Asia. Second, obviously, is the President's South Asia strategy, which he announced in August. And it was a very important announcement because the President said we're not leaving, that we are committed to the stability and security of Afghanistan, which is, absolutely important for Uzbekistan and for Afghanistan's neighbors. And we're not going to put ourselves on an artificial time frame. We'll stay as long as it takes, for Afghanistan to be able to achieve a negotiated political solution with the Taliban. And I think that message was deeply reassuring to most in the region. I think one of the fruits of that strategy was the recent visit we saw by President Ghani, the first Afghan president to visit Tashkent, and the host of memorandums and agreements that were signed. And Afghanistan's statement or President Ghani's statement that Afghanistan is a Central Asian nation. And so we're now able, I think, to conceive of the region not just as a series of important bilateral relationships, but as a region that has a very important agenda in opening up and in, I think, assisting the international community's much broader effort to stabilize Afghanistan and bring peace.
For Tashkent, the upcoming talks is a big deal.
Yes.
They're looking forward to it, and we believe that some really high-level officials are going to come from the neighboring countries, including the foreign ministers and others. Is Secretary Tillerson going to Central Asia?
I can't confirm our attendance yet, level of attendance yet at the conference, but I absolutely agree with your assessment of the conference that Uzbekistan has a historic role when it comes to promoting stability in Afghanistan, a historic role in driving diplomacy in the region. We see the Tashkent conference as a return to the international stage in some way. Under President Mirziyoyev, and a real opportunity for the region to embrace what we think is going to come out of next week's Kabul process. A pan-Afghan call for peace, a pan-Afghan affirmation that peace is the answer in Afghanistan. And so to be able to gather in Tashkent and to have the regional powers and important global powers there to take that proclamation and to endorse it and to look at how the region can support it is very important.
And with everything that's going on in Afghanistan, how hopeful are you about the outcome? What would this conference give you other than, let's say, sitting down and talking?
I'm confident that the conference is going to help push forward regional efforts to enforce what has been our most important message to the Taliban, that the door is open, there is a path to peace and stability with dignity for those members of the Taliban who are prepared to reject violence in their ties with terrorists and to accept the Constitution and its provisions for minorities and women. And I've been in this job position now for about 8 months, and I can assure you that really every country in the region, the United States, the Afghan government, were committed to ultimately a peaceful resolution. And so when we see the bombings that took place, the May 31st bombing, which was so catastrophic in Kabul, and the January 27th bombing in Kabul, I think the international community has to focus attention on who is rejecting peace. And right now it's the Taliban. And our efforts have to be, I think, directed at isolating the Taliban from the mainstream, yet showing the way forward. That we have not ruled out peace with the Taliban, we've not ruled out reconciliation, but at this stage we're not seeing actions by the Taliban that indicate their interest in a political settlement. And so the onus really has to be put on the Taliban.